I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move on tonight, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Jessica Ridgway and her family, please. Thank you. The city clerk, please take roll.
Mr. Reinhardt?
Here.
Mrs. J?
Present.
Mr. Stites?
Here.
Mr. DeMott?
Here.
Mr. Starker?
Present.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Pond?
Present.
Ms. Langworthy?
Here.
Mrs. Langworthy?
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of October 8th?
So moved. Second.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of October 8th? It was seconded by Mr. Starker. Any changes to the minutes? Please poll the council.
I didn't have it turned on. Vote again, please. Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. We have one award tonight. I will run down to the podium. Tonight we have the Starburst Award. I was going to ask Joyce Menwaring, our Parks Director, to please step forward and bring up the appropriate folks.
We have Matt Robbins, Community Relations Specialist from the Colorado Lottery here tonight, as the City of Wheat Ridge has won the Starburst Award for Discovery Park. And I'll let Matt explain that award a little bit to you, but Matt, come on up. But before Matt does that, I want to take a minute to thank Council for their support of Discovery Park, but especially the Mayor. The city acquired the piece of property in the year 2000, and the Mayor has diligently worked over the last really 10 years to see that park developed, along with Council, of course, but has supported it for many years. So it's nice to see it completed. I wanted to give him a thank you for that. Excuse me. Matt.
Thank you, Joyce, and thank you, Your Honor, for this opportunity. My name is Matt Robbins. I am the Community Relations Specialist at the Colorado Lottery, which gives me the distinct pleasure of traveling throughout the state and seeing all the benefits that have been made available through lottery funds. Many of you probably are aware, but the proceeds from the Colorado Lottery go to the protection of parks and recreation and open space throughout our state. And without question, the thing that we're most proud of at the lottery is that over the past nearly 30 years now already, we've been able to return more than $2.4 billion to the state for those causes at no expense to the general fund or to the taxpayers. I did grab a quick note here. What that means within the county, that equates to more than $150 million, but more importantly here tonight, over $7.4 million has gone into the city of Wheat Ridge from the Colorado Lottery directly. So, yeah, well, I should applaud all of you. I just simply get to work there. That's an initiative voted on by the people of Colorado. So I just get to carry out their mission. So I'm thankful for that. And of course, we couldn't do it without our partners, Great Outdoors Colorado, who administers grants, the Department of Local Affairs, who administers the Conservation Trust Fund, and our friends at Colorado Parks and Wildlife, formerly known as Colorado State Parks, as they are our partners in helping distribute the funds. The reason, of course, I'm here tonight is the Starburst Award. That is a program that we started in 1992 with the intent to really call attention to and recognize excellence in the use of lottery funds. Today, of course, and we already know the park and that I'm here to discuss, but it goes without saying that it's certainly a great project and an asset, not only, quite frankly, to the community here of Wheat Ridge, but also the surrounding areas and those who are fortunate enough to find their way there with all that it entails. Quickly, though, I had the opportunity. I made this official announcement at the Colorado Parks and Recreation Association's annual conference earlier this month. And to commemorate that, I had a poster developed that I'll present here momentarily, as well as an award. But we also took the opportunity to put a small ad in the newspaper about a week and a half ago, acknowledging your all's accomplishment and your commitment to the community and your constituents. So With that, of course, it's Discovery Park is the park that I'm just referring to. You actually utilized a Great Outdoors Colorado grant and then leveraged Conservation Trust Fund dollars for this project. And then also, of course, I had here down in some of my notes that you tapped into the Jefferson County Land and Open Space Government grants as well as some of the other monies that were available. So we at the lottery are proud of our portion of the projects, but also absolutely understand that no one project is fully funded by lottery dollars, and that it is simply just made it's just available there to help aid in the leverage of those things. So this park, I don't know what else has to be said that hasn't already been said over the last well, for anybody who's even been there. But and I know, Your Honor, after the time that you spent, this is really kind of a call to action that happened way back, I think back in 1992 when there was a master plan developed, and they really decided at that time that there was a need for a large community park, a regional park of sorts, and something that the people could enjoy, and that's what you all have here today. So I don't want to take too much more of your time. I just wanted to congratulate you all, not only in qualifying and securing that Great Outdoors Colorado grant, excuse me, lots of Colorados and in that, but also having the foresight to leverage those Conservation Trust Fund dollars and getting more out of that, and then the partnerships with the community and that land acquisition that was able to happen there on the corner, you know, at 38th and Kipling, and these things don't happen overnight. I refer to this $2.4 billion, and you would think I get to a new park opening every single week, but in the reality is there's only a handful of them across our entire country, or across our state, every given year. So to see something of this significance, it's really special to us and special to the mission of the lottery. So if I could, I have two pieces I'd like to present to you. First is the poster that we had developed to commemorate it. It's here. And so it says the 2012 Starburst Award for Excellence in Use of Lottery Funds for Wheat Ridge, City of Wheat Ridge for Discovery Park, and it looks as such. And it also mirrors similar to the ad that was in the paper. So I have that for you. And then I have the actual award, and I must say that there is, I apologetically say that there is some assembly required. And I only see he's smart. I think this is a good move. I'll have Joyce hold this, but this is our Starburst Award, and it's actually a solid piece of marble with engraved the Colorado Lottery Starburst Award to the City of Wheat Ridge for Excellence Use of Lottery Funds 2012, but it's accompanied by a solid piece of glass. Now, mind you, Joyce, as I hand this over in front of council, that it is not connected, but rather it sits such as that, and that's our Starburst Award. And I just wanted to take this. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you today, really acknowledging all the work that you all do. I have a really fortunate position. I get to travel around and celebrate all the work that folks like yourself are doing around the state, and I just want to thank you for your time here this evening.
Thanks. I just wanted to thank City Council for this. Right now we have a situation where our elected officials and our city staff and our council are all working together as a team, and our citizens too. We have our Parks Commission has been on board with a lot of these projects. We have a great city staff, and I wanted to especially thank Joyce Mannering. I've worked with her for the last 17 years, and she has worked tirelessly to get us as many grants as possible from Open Space and the Colorado Trust. And with Patrick's leadership on this park and a few other things, the city's really moving forward together as a team with the City Council, the Mayor's Office, our city staff, and we have a lot of citizens that are involved in our daily decisions. So it's great to have Wheat Ridge win this award, and it's fun to be the mayor right now in the city of Wheat Ridge. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is citizens' right to speak. Citizens' right to speak is reserved for members of the public who wish to speak on any item not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed 3 minutes. Others may donate their time to the speaker at the podium for a total of 9 minutes. So please step forward, and please spell your last name for the record and state your city and or your address.
Good evening. My name is Britta Fisher, F-I-S-H-E-R. I'm the Executive Director of Wheat Ridge 2020 and also a resident of District 1. Speaking of things that don't happen overnight, I wanted to take the time to congratulate the City Council, the City staff, and Renewal Wheat Ridge on the grand opening of the Wheat Ridge Town Center Apartments. It was really fun seeing many of you there tonight at the grand opening, and WASI partners are to be commended for a quality project. Catamount Construction, a great job done ahead of schedule. I just think it's a great asset for our community and wonderful to see this kind of quality residential development. It's something that councils before you and people for many years have seen as a possibility in Wheat Ridge, and it's nice to see these things get realized. So I just wanted to take the time and say thank you and congratulations to everyone involved.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move to approval of the agenda. Are any changes tonight on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public hearings and ordinances on second reading. Item 1 is Council Bill 20-2012. I'm going to open the public hearing.
Your Honor. Mr. Mayor, I think I have to recuse myself.
Oh, that's fine.
Thank you.
Let the record show that Mr. Reinhardt has excused himself and is leaving the City Council chambers. I wanted to thank Troop 514 for doing the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Mr. Starker always says I don't do it well enough, so I brought in the professionals tonight. Brought in the professionals tonight. Okay. We've opened the public hearing, and Ms. J.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 20-2012, an ordinance approving the comprehensive rezoning of property along 38th Avenue between Sheridan and Wadsworth to the mixed-use neighborhood MUN zone district. At issue, the city's adopted plans, including Envision Wheat Ridge and the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan, call for the redevelopment of 38th Avenue with mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly development. The current zoning on 38th Avenue contains outdated development standards and makes compact mixed-use development difficult to achieve. The mixed-use neighborhood MUN zone district adopted by City Council in 2010 was designed to promote quality mixed-use development in corridors like 38th Avenue. And let me add a couple of things here. The property to be zoned includes 159 properties on or near 38th Avenue. The MUN zone district allows a range of commercial, retail, civic, and residential uses, such as live-work units or a mixed-use building with retail on the ground floor and apartments above. The MUN zone district matches the height and density restrictions contained in the city charter. Building height and density issues would be addressed at a later date. Motion in order?
And we have a public
Public
hearing.
hearing, sorry. Thank you.
The city clerk, please assign an ordinance number.
This is, excuse me, this will be ordinance number 1526.
And this is quasi-judicial, so if you're here to speak on this item, please stand and raise your right hand, staff and public. Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter? Thank you. Move on to a staff presentation.
I'm going to just hand it over to Sarah Showalter, who's been a project manager on this case. I just echo Ms. J's comments. We really are pleased to be here tonight with this public hearing before you. This is the second corridor that we were pursuing the legislative rezoning process to tee up property for reinvestment and redevelopment. And this has really been the culmination of a number of years of work on 38th Avenue, starting with the comp plan and development of the district. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah to go over a little bit more of the details.
Thanks. I'd like to enter into the record the case file, this digital presentation, and the zoning ordinance. This is case WZ 1204 for the comprehensive rezoning of the 38th Avenue corridor to mixed-use neighborhood, or MUN. This is a map showing the area that's proposed to be rezoned. It includes 159 properties, the vast majority of which actually have frontage on 38th Avenue.
this map shows the zoning boundary in blue and then has the existing zoning for the corridor. You can see this pinkish reddish color is the most prominent zone district today. It's C1 or commercial 1. There's also a fair number of properties with restricted commercial or RC zoning. And then there's a small number of properties with neighborhood commercial and some residential zone districts that are included in this rezoning area. For those properties, as I mentioned, that have the most common zoning, which is the C1 or the RC, the zoning today, those districts allow for a wide range of commercial land uses. They allow for commercial buildings up to 50 foot in height, and they have a very limited allowance for residential use. It's allowed, but it's restricted in the size that it can be and the location it can be in a building, so it definitely is prohibitive in terms of having a situation like a live-work scenario or a mixed use where you have retail or commercial on the ground floor and residential above. And the land uses today are very mixed, similar to the zoning, which is quite a range. There's quite a range of uses, service and retail and commercial. Under the residential category, there's everything from single and two-family homes to multifamily. And there are some properties today that already have the mixed-use character of a mix of commercial and residential in one building. The proposed zoning is mixed-use neighborhood, or MUN. When staff and with the guidance of Planning Commission and Council worked on developing the mixed-use zoning a couple of years ago, this district was developed with 38th Avenue in mind. Property owners, businesses on 38th were given an opportunity to give input, as well as residents who live nearby the corridor. It allows for lower scale development. Right now it does match the restrictions that are in the city charter. So for residential buildings, that would be a maximum height of 35 feet, or about 2 to 3 stories. It has guidelines in it to ensure quality architecture and site design. And it also, one of the things that we heard from residents close to the corridor for this and other commercial corridors was the importance of including buffers and transitions as commercial properties abut residential neighborhoods. In terms of just a quick summary of some of the allowed uses for this proposed zone district, there's quite a range of commercial and retail uses, a little lower intensity, geared more towards neighborhood uses rather than very, very large scale commercial that we might see on more of a major regional corridor. And then there's also residential uses anywhere from single family to multifamily as permitted uses. Examples of uses that are not allowed in the MUN zoning include outdoor storage, adult entertainment, car washes, and bail bonds. There are also several conditional uses, which are uses that are allowed but require a little additional review through a conditional use permit. And those include drive-through uses, gas stations, car repair or car sales if it's indoors. And I would also note that drive-through uses and gas stations, in addition to being conditional uses, also have separation requirements. So this would not apply to any existing use, but if a new use were coming in, they'd have to be a certain number of feet from another use of the same type on the corridor. And then there are some uses that are not allowed, that are already on the corridor, and those become legally non-conforming. Just wanted to remind council we have what our provisions are for legal non-conforming uses. You are allowed to continue the use indefinitely and change ownership as many times as you want. You're allowed to expand by up to 25%. And the only way you really lose the right to the non-conforming use is if the property is vacant for 12 months or longer. As I mentioned earlier, one of the components of this proposed zoning is protecting transitions where we abut an existing residential lot. So one of those requirements to address that need is anywhere that there's a parking area or drive-through adjacent to a residentially zoned lot, there's a requirement to have a 6-foot landscape buffer in addition to a 6-foot tall screening element, whether it's a fence or wall, to help provide a buffer. And then there's also requirements for how close buildings can be to residential properties that are adjacent to the property that's being developed under the MU zoning. So if you have a 1 to 2 story building, it needs to be at least 10 feet away from the residential property, and that 10 feet would need to be landscaped. A 3-story building has to have at least a 15-foot buffer at the ground level, and a 4-story building would need to have 20 feet. There's also a provision for upper level step backs after the 2nd story, if you had a building taller than 2 stories, to do an additional 5 feet on those upper stories for the 3rd and 4th stories. In terms of the architectural standards, there's quite a range. They cover ground floor transparency, which is really requiring windows for facades that face the street, so that there's interest for pedestrians on the sidewalk. Build-to requirements to try and have buildings placed close to the street and parking to the side or in the rear. Standards, so we have quality material and variation in materials. You don't have monotonous design. Variation and articulation of the building facade, so there's not blank, flat walls. And then screening of parking lots and drive-throughs that are visible from the public realm. The proposed zoning is definitely in line with the city's adopted plans for the 38th Avenue corridor. Our comprehensive plan, Envision Wheat Ridge, which was adopted in 2009, identifies this corridor as a priority redevelopment area and also designates it as the city's main street and specifically encourages the city to promote mixed-use development in that redevelopment area. And then our corridor plan for 38th, adopted in 2011, which gets into a little more detail, specifically mentions as a major land use recommendation the need to rezone the corridor, create more current zoning that's not outdated, and that promotes the vision for a vibrant mixed-use corridor. In terms of process, the outreach to owners, people who live close to the corridor on the idea of a rezoning started in 2010 when we were doing the actual writing of the code. And so starting then until 2012, there were 3 owners meetings that were specific to property owners. We then had a neighborhood meeting in August, which includes not only all of the property owners in the rezoning area, but anybody who lives or owns property within 600 feet of the rezoning area. And then there were several mailings done to property owners to keep them informed of the process, make sure they were aware of all these meetings and also of the public hearings that have been happening this summer and fall as the process has gone forward. There were 5 property owners when we did one of the mailings that was done earlier this year per the guidance of City Council was a feedback form to property owners saying, you know, are you interested in being rezoned or not? And we did, from that outreach, ended up with 5 total properties that wanted to be removed. So those are not included in the rezoning boundaries. And then in addition, per guidance from City Council, the ordinance does include a 30-day window in which property owners can still be removed if they desire. In terms of meeting the zoning criteria that are established in our code, staff has found that these criteria have been met.
The proposal for the new mixed-use neighborhood zoning would promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the community. It will not create a significant adverse effect. Infrastructure largely already exists and will be upgraded as required as future development occurs. It's consistent with our adopted plans, the comprehensive plan and the 38th Avenue corridor plan, and there has been a change in character in the area since this initial zoning was put in place that makes it in the interest of the city to encourage redevelopment. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Do we have anybody here to speak on item number 1? Please step forward and spell your last name for the record. And please state your city and or your address.
Britta Fisher again, FISHER, still the Executive Director of Wheat Ridge 2020 and also a resident of District 1. On behalf of Wheat Ridge 2020, we would like to state our support for this mixed-use zoning for all the reasons that Sarah just stated. There's been so many plans, and this is the next step in making this an open for business type of community that wants to welcome investment and development in an appropriate way. And I think mixed-use zoning is a great example of how we can do that, how we can restore some property rights and property values, and hopefully encourage and invite people to invest in their existing properties and to redevelop properties that really could use some redevelopment. So we encourage you to vote in favor tonight of the mixed-use zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else for item number 1? Seeing none, we'll move on to council discussion. Any questions? Mr. Stites?
Sir. Now, does this take into account, I think right now, I don't know exact figures, but I think from like the center of 38th out for 175 feet is commercial. So like the piece of property behind ours is partly commercial and stuff. Now, does this zoning take into effect them?
The criteria that was used is the majority of commercially zoned properties, as long as they were abutting another property right on 38th, are included in the area.
Now, on the non-conforming uses, would you tell me why we would have non-conforming uses on 38th?
Sure. Well, just to clarify, there's actually already a lot of non-conforming uses on 38th. We have, under the current zoning, for an example, there's some uses like car washes and car sales that are required to have special use permits, and these uses have, a lot of these businesses, as you know, have been there for decades, never got a special use permit, so technically they're legally non-conforming. So some of those same uses, like a car wash as an example, or car sales again, that aren't allowed under the current zoning would remain legally non-conforming. Another example that might come up is if you have overnight outdoor storage of vehicles on your property, that component of your business would be legally non-conforming.
Now, would my family store be considered non-conforming?
My understanding is that it would not, because you do most of your work indoors, and there's not the constant keeping of vehicles, on display outside. So it would be a conforming use.
But it kind of concerns me a little bit on the non-conforming uses, because there's been, a lot of them there for years, and I don't think we arbitrarily take those rights away from those people. But it concerns me listing non-conforming uses in there, because what happens, okay, you say right now everything's hunky-dory, you can sell, you can do this and that. But what happens in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, a different council comes in and interprets it's different. Community development might change upstairs or whatever. They, would interpret things different. And it kind of concerns me that some of them are listed as a non-conforming use.
Just to clarify, there's no list in here that says these uses are non-conforming. There's just, like in all of our zone districts, we're required in the code to state in any zone district, here's the uses that are allowed, here's the uses that are special or conditional use, and here's the uses that are not allowed. So that's what's listed. There's no list of these properties or these specific uses are non-conforming.
I see you have adult entertainment, but what about adult bookstores? Are they allowed?
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments before I close the public hearing?
I just have one.
Ms. Davis?
Thank you. So the 5 properties that you had said weren't interested in the mixed use, did they give a reason why?
Well, so the initial response, we actually had some more property owners than that, and it was the written response to the survey. Mm-hmm. And per council's direction, staff tried to reach out to anybody who said they were undecided or had cited no. A couple of those property owners didn't respond to us when we tried calling and emailing them, so the only reason I can give is what they stated. Sometimes it's a really short explanation on their written form back. One was said that it was because their property taxes would increase. We really wanted to tried hard to get in touch with that property owner because that's not true. The county assessor does not base their assessment for taxes at all on zoning. But unfortunately, the property owner did not want to talk with us, so that was the reason that was cited. That was cited on at least 2. Of the 5, one of them is actually somebody who just remained undecided, and council decided to remove on the first reading. They didn't want to risk rezoning somebody against their will, and this property owner, even though we did talk to them, just felt like she couldn't come up with a yes or no answer. So that was the most common reason, was the property taxes, and actually I think everybody that has been removed did not actually respond to us when we tried to talk, and so I think a lot of it is just might be partly misconceptions.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Starker?
Ms. Showalter, how are the architectural standards applied to existing properties in the district after the rezoning? I can certainly see how new projects and properties would be able to meet the architectural standards, but is there a percentage of upgrade where the standards would kick in, or would you just speak a little about that?
Sure, yeah, it's a good question. The language in the code is that if you do a remodel to an existing property that increases you by 15% or more, you're expected to meet the code, but it's very clear where practical. So an example we like to give, obviously, if you have an existing property that's set far back from the street and you're doing a facade improvement and maybe a slight expansion, we're not going to expect you to then meet the Build 2 requirement because it's not a brand new building. So the trigger is at the 15%, but even there, if it's an existing property, there's language in the code to be a lot more flexible and understand that when you're dealing with an existing situation, you probably won't be able to meet every standard 100%.
Mr. Duat?
I'm not asking which 5 properties are being exempted from this. I'm just asking for this and written into this ordinance is the option to opt out within 30 days. Where will those be, the 5 that are taken out now, and if there are any others, where will they be listed? In the ordinance themselves, or will they be...
Well, so the 5 that are in there are not listed because the boundaries just do not include them. So they're not listed because they're just not part of this rezoning. If we get future requests, I guess we would follow the model we did when we did the Wadsworth rezoning, at which point we required that it was a written request, and this case file is kept open for the next 30 days, and those written requests are put in the case file, and then before we record the final rezoning boundaries, they have to be removed. So the only way it's officially memorialized, is the new map doesn't include those properties, but anybody could look at the case file because it's public record at any time and see the addresses of the properties that requested during the 30-day period.
And so those will just remain, if it's a commercial property, it remains commercial.
Correct. Whatever their current zoning is would remain.
Any other questions from council before I close the public hearing? Ms. Jay, or Ms. Shaver?
I have a technical question. On first reading, there was a condition that the property 6965 to 85 West 38th Avenue would be removed. And in tonight's motion, that isn't listed. I mean, it's referenced prior to that in a paragraph, but it's not written out as part of the motion, and I just wondered if that's...
Well, the actual ordinance itself was updated after the first reading to remove that property.
Okay.
So it no longer needs to be a condition, is my understanding, because it's already been removed.
That was a change approved on first reading. That change got made to the ordinance, so the ordinance that came back to council on second reading contains the change. So we don't have to keep making the change. We made it on first reading, done.
Okay. And so it's not in the map. Okay.
Any other questions before I close the public hearing? I want to close the public hearing and a motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill number 20-2012, an ordinance approving the comprehensive rezoning of property along 38th Avenue between Sheridan and Wadsworth to the mixed-use neighborhood zone district on second reading, and that it take effect 30 days after final publication.
Second. We have a motion for approval of item number 1. It was seconded by Mr. Pond. Discussion on the main motion. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Would somebody please ask Mr. Reinhardt, please come back in. Thank you, Sarah. Are you up for number 2? Okay. Let the record show that Mr. Reinhardt entered the council chambers for item number 2. And we'll move on to item number 2, which is Council Bill 23-2012. I'm going to open the public hearing. Ms. Davis.
Council Bill number 23-2012, an ordinance approving a city-initiated rezoning of property located at 7750 3 Acre Lane from residential 3 to mixed-use commercial. Case number WZ-12-5. Issue. In 2011, City Council approved the legislative rezoning of the Wadsworth Corridor to mixed-use commercial. It has come to the staff's attention that a 1.15 acre parcel just west of Wadsworth at 7750 3 Acre Lane was inadvertently excluded from the zone change process. This application is a city-initiated rezoning, and approval of the enclosed ordinance will rezone the subject parcel to mixed-use commercial. In prior action, City Council approved Ordinance 1496 in July 2011 to legislatively rezone the Wadsworth Corridor to mixed-use commercial, case number WZ-11-03. In early 2012, staff realized the subject parcel was inadvertently left out. This information was presented at a study session on June 4, 2012, at which time it was city staff was directed to proceed with the zone change process. Planning Commission recommended approval at a public hearing on September 6, 2012. The staff report and meeting minutes from the commission are enclosed.
Would the city clerk please assign an ordinance number?
This will be ordinance number 1527.
Thank you. If you're here to speak on item number 2, public or staff, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth in this matter? Thank you. We'll move on to staff presentation.
It's not actually a PowerPoint presentation, so don't
Thank you.
be intimidated. I do have a slide there if people want to look at it that just shows the map, if people would find that beneficial. I'll be brief. Thank you, Ms. Davis, for the introduction. As noted in that summary, this really was an oversight in the map that was prepared for the mixed-use commercial legislative rezoning on Wadsworth that the City Council adopted in 2011 in that corridor rezoning. It evolved as a result of a mapping error in the city's GIS system. We had inadvertently, in the digital map that was created to reflect the urban renewal area, we had omitted this parcel from that map in GIS. So the property owner actually came in to inquire about the development potential for the property in the last year, and it was at that time that we pulled it up and thought we were going to see mixed-use commercial on the map, and lo and behold, it remained in its existing zoning. We talked to the property owner, briefed him on what that mixed-use commercial zoning looked like, gave them an opportunity to consider whether they, in retrospect, would have liked to have been included, since that was the legislative intent of mapping the mixed-use commercial consistent with the urban renewal boundaries. They gave that some consideration, and upon reflection decided that they would have liked to have been included. Given that it was the legislative intent to have included them, we thought it was appropriate for the city to initiate a legislative rezoning so that they wouldn't have that cost or expense of having to go through that process as an individual property owner. City Council supported that request, and that's how we got here tonight, which is a public hearing to consider rezoning this one property to mixed-use commercial consistent with most of its neighbors. I would note that, as the mayor noted, this is a quasi-judicial application as opposed to the previous corridor rezoning, which was actually considered legislative. Just a distinction because of the scope of the larger 38th Avenue rezoning. We consider that a legislative act of council, whereas this is clearly a quasi-judicial one-lot rezoning matter. And with that, I'd be glad to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Is there anybody here to speak on item number 2? Seeing none, we'll move on to council discussions and questions. Any questions from council discussion? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and a motion's in order.
Thank you. I move to approve Council Bill number 23-2012, an ordinance approving a city-initiated rezoning of property located at 7753 Acre Lane from residential 3 to mixed-use commercial on second reading, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve item number 2, seconded by Mr. Reinhardt. Please poll the council. Oh. I cleared it and I didn't turn the button off. Please vote again. I'm sorry. Motion carries 8-0.
We're going to start making green cupcakes or something every time she does that.
Janelle, you can clear it now and turn it off. I cleared it. I didn't flip the switch back.
We're done, good.
Item number 3 is Council Bill 25-2012. I'm going to open the public hearing. Mr. Reinhardt?
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Council Bill 25-2012, an ordinance amending Section 5-45 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning certain escrow agreements as security for public improvements. The City Code requires the construction of certain public improvements as a condition of building permit issuance. The governing ordinance was amended in late 2012, eliminating the use of escrows to ensure construction of any required public improvements. Escrows currently held for commercial and industrial building permits are to be retained indefinitely. The proposed ordinance would allow the refunding of all escrows if the associated improvements have not been constructed in 10 years. Is a motion?
Oh, no, we have a public hearing.
I'm sorry.
So would the city clerk please assign an ordinance number?
This will be ordinance number 1528.
Thank you. Is there any more of a staff presentation beyond the executive summary?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. We'll move on to public comment. Do we have anybody here to speak on item number 3 tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to council questions and discussion. Any comments or questions? Mr. Reinhardt?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think that this is something that we need to do. We have a situation where the city has taken funds from individuals for a specific purpose. When it was not used for that purpose, this gives us a vehicle for returning the funds to the original escrow or escrow party, the party that provided the funds, and I think it's highly appropriate that they have those funds returned. So I urge council to pass this ordinance.
Any other comments or questions from council before I close the public hearing? I want to close the public hearing and a motion's in order.
I move to approve Council Bill Number 25, 2012, an ordinance amending Section 5-45 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning certain escrow agreements as security for public improvements on second reading, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
We have a motion to approve item number 3. It was seconded by Mr. DeMott. Discussion? Please poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Item 4 is public hearing on the 2013 budget. If you're here to speak on the budget, please step forward and spell your last name for the record. Do we need the overhead for that tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
We're doing a presentation.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, and a short one. And it is a public hearing. We do have a presentation.
Okay.
Would you like to do that first? Or? Presentation? Jerry? Mayor, I'm sorry. Would you like to do the presentation first? Staff has the presentation.
Well, normally we have the comments from public first, and then your comments. Because this isn't like a quasi-judicial type thing.
Public hearing. So don't you still go through the same process?
Well, you can take the public first or second, but there is a staff presentation.
Right. And it normally would take public comment. Yeah, so we can have the folks, if they want to leave, they can leave. So please step forward and go ahead and make your comments, and then you can stay or you can leave. It's up to you. Thank you.
Happy to go first, happy to go second. Doesn't matter to us. Good evening. My name is Ted Hyde, H-E-Y-D, and I'm the planning consultant for Live Well Wheat Ridge. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to provide comment tonight on the 2013 budget, draft budget, and the CIP. Live Well Wheat Ridge would like to thank the mayor, city staff, and elected and appointed officials here in Wheat Ridge for the significant improvements that have been implemented in the past several years to create safer environments and support active transportation, increased access to public transportation, and really valuable linkages to paths, trails, and services throughout the community. We'd like to urge the city to continue this great work by funding the following projects in 2013 as specified in the draft budget. One being the ongoing implementation of the 38th Ave Corridor Plan, improvements on 38th that were implemented this past summer really go to support a more pedestrian and bicycle-friendly environment. Second is the Wadsworth Planning and Environmental Linkage Study. This valuable study would examine a host of multimodal issues on a section of Wadsworth and will set up the planning foundation for future improvements on the city's most heavily traveled corridor. Third is the Kipling multi-use path. This path will provide valuable linkages for the community between some key destinations, including the Crown Hill Park, Wheat Ridge High School, Discovery Park, the Rec Center, and Clear Creek Trail. Fourth is the 32nd Avenue Widening Project. This project includes the installation of several features intended to make the intersection at 32nd and Youngfield more pedestrian friendly. And lastly is the installation of 39 new transit benches throughout the city. We recognize that like many cities throughout the metro area, Wheat Ridge is doing its best to balance multiple project demands within notable fiscal constraints. And it's in this context, our hope is that by building on a really positive trend of investment, Wheat Ridge will continue to evolve as a healthy, prosperous, and socially vibrant community in which to live, work, and play for individuals of all incomes and abilities. An investment like this in the community's infrastructure is an investment really in its families and its businesses and its future. So through providing increased access to a range of active transportation and recreation choices, our hope as Live Well Wheat Ridge is that the community will continue to be a great place for its existing residents to live, but that as properties turn over in time and younger families seek out places to put down roots, they're going to see Wheat Ridge as the next best thing. And we also hope that entrepreneurs and real estate developers will really see Wheat Ridge as a community that's on the rise and that it's a promising environment in which to invest. So in closing, we really want to thank you for your support and taking the time to listen this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is David Keeter, Kueter. I'm a resident of District 1, and as a Wheat Ridge resident, a avid bicyclist, and a member of the Transit Alliance's Citizens Academy, I'm here in support of the comments that made by Mr. Hyde and Live Well Wheat Ridge, specifically with regard to the 38th Avenue redevelopment. I'd like to encourage the city and community development to include a focus on the bike path or putting in bike lanes on Pierce Street, particularly south of 38th Avenue. The Pierce is obviously between Wadsworth and Sheridan, a major north-south connector, and having the bike path or bike lanes set out as is proposed in the master plan, pedestrian and bicycle master plan, will increase the access to the 38th Avenue redevelopment, not just for citizens of Wheat Ridge, but also attracting people from not just Edgewater and Lakewood, but the new RTD West line that is scheduled to open up in April, and the bike path that's being installed alongside those tracks. And so I think that the putting in those bike lanes as proposed would be consistent with the goals of the 38th Avenue redevelopment, interconnecting the neighborhood communities with that development, and also the pedestrian and bicycle master plan. Again, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Christian Teagardin, Teegardin. I'm a resident of Edgewater, and I also work in Wheat Ridge.
Shouldn't you be at a council meeting tonight, Mr. Teagarden?
Mr. Mayor and members of council, thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for your deliberation and discretion. Actually, we canceled our second meeting for council. Just this election's driving everybody crazy, I guess. Tonight, I am speaking as an employee of Jefferson Center for Mental Health, and more specifically Summit Center, in regards to the multimodal projects that are going on. And there are so many wonderful things going on in Wheat Ridge. And just to touch upon the north-south corridor with Pierce, I use that to go to work. A lot of residents in Edgewater use that as well. Two-way streets. What's good for Edgewater is good for Wheat Ridge, and I hope vice versa. We are very excited about the 38th Avenue projects going on. It's kind of funny, when it was first instituted, I was making a right on 38th and almost hit one of the new blocks going to work. I'm sure that's happened a couple times. But as our folks that I serve, people with severe mental illnesses, they are limited in their income. We have folks that walk up and down the 38th corridor all the time. And also as a staff member that works there, we visit the numerous businesses along that avenue. And the continued development as a destination spot, I think, is very exciting. And to be able to get out of your car and walk up and down that corridor and visiting the different shops is amazing. The second thing that I would like to speak upon is the 29th in Watts project that's going in, the MCPN clinic. Jefferson Center does have some offices reserved there with our push toward integrated healthcare. We just opened up a building in Lakewood that provides substance abuse, mental health, and physical health care. So we're really trying to drive that aspect into the next decade and beyond. So there will be much more traffic along 29th in Watts, and not only staff but customers that receive those services, and hopefully being mindful of the multi-modal modes, whether it's biking or walking or public transportation, people getting off. Anything that would tie into 38th Avenue to buttress our businesses along that would be absolutely wonderful. I wanted to thank Mayor DiTullio specifically for always supporting Jefferson Center for Mental Health and also Summit Center, and I think Mr. Stites donated to our bowl-a-thon as well. So we really appreciate that and the continued efforts of the coordination and collaboration between Wheat Ridge, Edgewater, and Jefferson Center for Mental Health. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Teagarden. Do we have any other comments before we move on to our public presentation? Thank you for coming. Please feel free to stay, and thank you for your comments. Mr. Goff?
Thank you, Mayor. We are happy to be here tonight to present to you the 2013 proposed budget in the official public hearing. And Heather will fire up the presentation here in the next couple of seconds. I think it's just black screens on, Heather. You just got to take that one. You shut it off. Okay. Next slide, please. Just a little review of the budget process this year for the 2013 budget. We have had two public input meetings, both on they were on July 23rd and August 13th. We did receive several comments at those meetings, which we'll discuss briefly soon. We presented the proposed budget to City Council and made it available to the public on September 21st. We had our budget retreat on October 1st, where we did receive some direction from Council specifically to add $10,000 to the general fund for the Feed the Future Backpack program, which we did include in the proposed budget. And we're scheduling November 26th for the adoption and certification of the property tax mill levy. Just real quickly, this is a list of the public input we did receive on July 23rd and August 13th. In general, most of the comments were pertain to multiple projects, 38th Avenue, Wheat Ridge Business District, Wheat Ridge 2020 funding. That was it. And as we mentioned at our retreat, City Council does have a vision statement for the city, which we do look at on an annual basis to make sure that we're staying on track, and our budget process is developed around that. Wheat Ridge vision for 2025, Wheat Ridge is a beautiful city and a community for families. Wheat Ridge has great neighborhoods, vibrant activity centers, and multimodal transportation. Wheat Ridge residents enjoy an active, healthy lifestyle and hometown feeling and pride. Wheat Ridge, a great place to live. City Council has also created 4 specific goals for the next 5 years, and those are financially sound city providing quality services, economically viable activity centers, choice of desirable neighborhoods, more attractive Wheat Ridge, and we'll talk about each of those goals specifically and which budget items are in the budget that address those goals. So our proposed total budget for 2013 revenues, we're projecting just over $40 million in revenues. This is for all funds in the 2013 budget. This is about a 21% increase in what we're estimating this year, primarily due to some large grants we are receiving for capital projects. And the ending fund balance we are projecting for the end of 2013 is about a 35% decrease compared to this year. And again, that's because of those grant projects will be completed hopefully in 2013, which will decrease the fund balance. Total expenditures for 2013 for all funds, again, this includes the general operating budget, the capital improvement budget, and we have 6 special revenue funds. We're proposing about a $46 million budget. Almost, I guess, 90% of that is for the general operating budget and our capital budget. And we have several other smaller special revenue funds, which we won't go into detail unless there's questions. So focusing specifically on the general fund, we are projecting revenues, about a 2.8% increase in revenues over this year, just over $28 million. The majority of those revenues, as you all know, come from our sales tax and use tax. About 70% of our revenue sources are from our sales and use tax, and we have other minor revenue sources. Just to point out for the public, just to remind them that property tax is one of our smaller revenue sources. Only about 3% of our revenues come from our property tax. Expenditures for 2013, we are proposing a balanced budget for the general fund operating budget. So our expenditures match what we're proposing or estimating for revenues, just over $27 million. And this is about a 3.1% increase over this year's budget. We are projecting an ending fund balance at the end of next year in the general fund of about $7.6 million. And this is about 27% of our expenditures. Our expenditures in the general fund are broken down by the various different departments. Our police department is our largest expense, has been historically, and is primarily the largest expense in most cities. And our public works and parks and recreation departments, not including the recreation center, but all other parks and recreation functions, come in second with about 16% and 15% of the budget. And then we have some other programs and services which make up the rest of the budget, smaller part of the budget. So looking at the 4 City Council goals that have been established, we've identified some specific budget items that directly impact those goals, and we'd like to highlight those. So looking at financially sound city providing quality services, employee compensation is one of our largest expenses, so it is a priority that we continue to invest in our workforce. We are looking at a new compensation plan, which is going to be more linked to performance management system for 2013, where staff is continuing to work on that as we speak, and we'll be bringing that to City Council by the end of the year. We are proposing to allocate a lump sum of $450,000 to help fund any increases in salaries in 2013. Also, as part of that, we are looking at a performance management program system, which will help our departments to implement the performance management evaluation system as part of that new compensation plan. That's a $28,000 expense. Service priorities and funding is another City Council action item that meets this goal. And in 2013, we're proposing $15,000 in the budget to continue on with our priority-based budgeting process. And then pay time off, PTO, cash out. We've had numerous recommendations from our outside auditors to continue to keep a manageable amount of accrued PTO in our liability accounts. So we are proposing to continue a cash out program to keep that liability at a sustainable level. Moving on with the same goal, we are proposing replacement of some fleet vehicles, mainly vehicles that are very critical to our needs and are at a critical point of needing to be replaced, either based on age, condition, or mileage. We are proposing $385,000 That still does leave us behind in about $2 million of deferred vehicle replacement needs. Our continuing annual preventive maintenance program of $1.6 million. This is a little bit lower than we do usually propose on an annual basis. We're only able to find about 1.6 available in funds. And this is our annual street overlay, crack seal, chip seal projects, and concrete repair for various areas across the city. We continue to look outside at different agencies and our neighbors and different organizations where we can partner for different services, and we're continuing to fund the crime lab services with the City of Lakewood, which has enabled the city to decrease staffing over the last couple of years and keep the costs down for our crime lab services. Continuing to put money away in our equipment replacement fund to pay for those large equipment replacements. In the future, a couple items. One item that we recently used this fund for was the replacement of police department radios. We're going to have to look at our police department computer-aided dispatch and records management system in the next several years. So we need to put money aside to be able to pay for those large expenses in the future. Employee safety and wellness programs. We're very mindful of the continuing increase in cost of workers' compensation insurance and our employee benefit programs. So we are trying to help control those costs with a safe and well environment for our employees. And so we have a few funds budgeted for that effort. Moving on to Goal 2, economically viable activity centers. We're fortunate to receive quite a few grants over the last couple of years for some large projects, and most of those projects fall under this goal. For the action item of the Clear Creek Crossing Development Agreement, we are proposing a project at 32nd and Youngfield to make some major improvements to that interchange. As I mentioned, this is a grant program and also a contribution from Jackson County and the city also to make those improvements of about $5.5 million. And then also some funding to continuing investing in the 38th Avenue corridor plan, about $120,000 to continue the implementation of the marketing plan that was presented to the City Council a few weeks ago, $67,000 to host numerous events along the corridor throughout the year, $100,000 for any capital street improvements that may be needed as part of the implementation, and then some marketing and maps and directory items, $7,000, which would be in our economic development marketing budget. Continuing on with the same goal, the city also received a fully funded grant of $400,000. We're proposing to spend $350,000 of that next year. This is from the Brownfields EPA grant, which will help the city contribute to future developments, redevelopments in the city by providing funding to complete Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental studies to ensure that the properties are viable for redevelopment and the developers can have a sense of confidence that they can develop the properties within budget. Live local events. This is coordinated through Wheat Ridge 2020. I think it's been very successful over the last few years of getting people out and focusing on Wheat Ridge businesses and getting people to stay in Wheat Ridge and spend their dollars. So we'd like to contribute to that program. And then the Wheat Ridge Business District loan program, which we've had in place for several years. We typically have budgeted $40,000 a year and then funded any potential increases that they may ask for during the year. They have asked this year for a budget of $90,000, which we have included in the budget. And this is for their facade grant programs, their accessibility grant programs, and the signage program grant programs. The Wadsworth Planning Environmental Linkage, the PEL project, which was mentioned earlier in our public comment. This is a grant that was partially funded, and this will complete the study of Wadsworth Boulevard to determine what the future design of that corridor would look like when and if CDOT comes in and makes any improvements to that. And then our annual funding for Renewal Wheat Ridge for their projects. Most of you were at the grand opening this evening at 44th and Watts, which I think is a testament to some of the success of these funds. And we encourage council to continue funding Renewal Wheat Ridge for future projects and redevelopment projects. Moving on to goal 3, choice of desirable neighborhoods. Aging population needs assessment is an action item in the City Council strategic plan. We are proposing to a $3,000 budget to do an aging needs assessment next year. We're already working on that and have pulled together the community, all the different stakeholders in the community to help us out with that. Block parties is a neighborhood program that Wheat Ridge 2020 helps us with to help develop neighborhoods. That's a $2,500 expense. Wheat Ridge 2020 was fortunate to receive a CDBG grant to help with energy efficiency of our households in the city. The grant is over $150,000, I believe, but all those funds have to go directly into the cost of energy efficiency programs. So $6,000 would cover overhead costs to administer the program. The Home Investment Loan Program, again, the HIP program is another Wheat Ridge 2020 program, which provides low-interest loans to residents to make improvements to their homes. That's a potentially $50,000 expense. And 29th Avenue storm sewer improvements. This was a project that has been discussed many times with City Council about some drainage issues in East Wheat Ridge along 29th Avenue. We have $850,000 in the CIP budget proposed for next year to help with those improvements. Continuing on with the same goal, we have, this again was mentioned earlier under citizen comment, installation of 39 new bus benches. This is a partially grant-funded project, and we have $250,000 in the budget for that. Funding for the District 2 Neighborhood Park on 44th and Kindle, $875,000. This is partially grant funded, and this is an Open Space and Conservation Trust fund budget project. We have a couple community-oriented neighborhood programs in the police department. This is mainly for overtime to provide additional Greenbelt patrol along our Greenbelt, and then also provide community-oriented neighborhood programs, specifically in East Wheat Ridge, to help with the revitalization of that part of our city. Our last goal, more attractive Wheat Ridge. As y'all are aware, we also received a grant this last year to put in new bus stop shelters throughout the city, and those are going to be owned by the city, so we're going to have to maintain and clean those. So we are going to contract that service out. Then also the new bus benches that we're going to be installing. We have a $36,000 expense to hire a company to take care of those for us. We are adding about $2,000 in for 38th Avenue for the landscaping annual plantings in our flower beds. Continuing with the Dumpster Day program that Wheat Ridge 2020 helps coordinate, $5,000 expense. And then a new program which has been proposed by Wheat Ridge 2020 in conjunction with the police department's East Wheat Ridge project. This would be a $20,000 expense for targeted maintenance and upgrade grants for East Wheat Ridge. Basically identifying a couple blocks at a time to do some pretty intensive, proactive improvements to streetscapes and landscaping and aesthetics of some of those neighborhoods to help with the revitalization of that part of the city. And then another large grant program for a multi-use path trail on Kipling Street. And this is $2.8 million, and it's along Kipling Street between 32nd to 35th, and then from 38th to 44th. A few more items under more attractive Wheat Ridge. We do have funds in the CIP budget for a gateway signage program. No specific gateways identified, but that's something that we can discuss with council next year if you approve this funding. Some improvements to City Hall, specifically the front entrance plaza areas, park maintenance, general park maintenance projects, funding for the large item pickup program that we've been doing for several years to allow residents to, at first come, first basis, to get rid of some large items that their normal collection service may not pick up. And then finally some improvements to a fairly new median along 50th Avenue, which is part of the Arvada Ridge development. This median is in the city of Wheat Ridge, and we need to make some improvements to that. So that would be a parks project. Some other notable budget items that may not directly impact these goals. Just want to make sure that the public and council has these on the radar. The first is a continuation of the funding for the Zopi Family Circus. We discussed this at study session last week, and we have the funding in there that the circus proposes with some conditions for a second year. Outside agency requests, these are the grant program that we have for nonprofit organizations that are providing different services to our residents. And we provided you a list of those recommendations that staff has made based on the request we received. That's 10,000. There are quite a few new ADA compliance regulations being mandated by the federal government down to our level, and it's necessary for the city to put a plan in place to identify how the city's going to address those new regulations. And it's anything from a park playground to a recreation center to a municipal building. Certain ADA improvements are going to need to be made in those different facilities. So we're planning to hire a consultant and then also do some initial upgrades at some of our parks. So there's funding for both of those items. Carnation Festival, the Feed the Future Backpack program, which I mentioned earlier. We do have that in the proposed budget now, a $10,000 contribution to that program. Continuing our Carnation Festival funding, a cash contribution of $12,500, and then in-kind assistance on top of that of $28,000. That's mainly staff overtime and a few other costs. Then a new expense we're proposing in next year's budget for the City Council's budget is $3,000 to fund various sponsorships that the City Council requests the city receives over the year. We're just proposing to have a specific line item in there so that you can decide which ones you'd like to sponsor. So moving on now, that was the general fund. Moving on to the CIP budget, the Capital Investment Program budget. It is a fairly large budget next year, which is good to see. Unfortunately, most of those are it's mostly grant funded, so we won't be able to continue that on an annual basis, but we're proposing a budget of over $13 million in 2013, and those projects include 32nd and Youngfield interchange improvements. It's a grant project. Kipling Street pedestrian improvements, the Wadsworth Pell Planning Environmental Linkage Project, the Pell, and then our annual preventative street maintenance of 1.6. The drainage project I spoke about on 29th and Chase is $850,000, and then improvements to City Hall, which include the courtyard improvements and also a remodel of an underutilized space in the police department for a total of $340,000. Other major CIP projects include the installation of new bus benches throughout the city, public improvements projects. That's just a kind of a holder in case there's a project, private development project that comes up next year that the city may need to contribute to do some road work or something that the city may need to contribute to. $100,000 for 38th Avenue corridor projects. Again, I mentioned the Gateway Signage Program. $100,000, and the police department is requesting a police radio repeater site on the north side of the city by Manwaring Park to make sure that we have adequate police coverage, radio coverage. So that's our CFP budget. Moving on to the Recreation Center Fund. This is for the operation of the Recreation Center. Revenues, we're projecting revenues of just over $2 million and expenditures of about $2.4 million. Obviously, that's a deficit there, so that the fund balance of the recreation center will be used to make up that difference. Open space funds, these revenues come from the Jefferson County open space tax primarily. We're looking at a $1.5 million budget, projected revenues of about 1.1. Major projects in the open space budget for next year, we're proposing, again, the Kendall Park development, the District 2 Park, $675,000. Open space pays for 5 staff and park employees, so that's about $464,000. Improvements to our Public Works Parks operations facilities, some sign fabrication throughout our park and open space system, a master plan for Anderson Park, improvements to our Happiness community gardens, a match for the Jeffco County River Corridor project, some miscellaneous open space and trail replacement projects throughout the city. Moving on to the Conservation Trust Fund, this is primarily funded from our lottery proceeds, which we received an award from tonight for the Starburst Award. We're projecting a budget of just over $500,000 and projecting revenues of just under $300,000. Major projects under for this budget for next year is starting to put money away to build up the reserves for some type of improvements or replacement of our Anderson building, and that's over a 5-year program to build up the funds to have enough money to do anything. So we won't see anything in 2013. But another $200,000 for the Kendall Park in District 2, some miscellaneous recreation center maintenance and some park maintenance projects, and some tennis court and basketball court maintenance are the major projects in that fund. Staffing is proposed to stay the same across the city in all funds. We are at 226.015 FTEs throughout the city. We're not proposing any increases or decreases in staffing for 2013. As I mentioned before, staff is in the middle of looking at a new compensation plan to make sure both that we're continuing to remain marketable and competitive with our outside competitors, and also making sure that we have a plan that is sustainable in the long term for the city. Both are very important. We're going to present that to the council at the end of the year. As I mentioned, we're moving towards a more performance management, pay-for-performance system, a total rewards approach, we're calling it, which entails a pay-for-performance. And as I mentioned, we are including including $450,000 in the budget to implement that plan. So, in summary, we are proposing a balanced general fund budget without using our city's reserves. We are identifying over $16 million that are directly related to our city council goals. However, we're continuing to defer some maintenance and replacement of large equipment. We are projecting to have a reserve fund balance at the end of next year of 27%, which is total reserves, but unrestricted reserves is about 23%, meaning we can use those funds for anything and they're not restricted for any uses. So this is just under the policy target that City Council set of maintaining a 25% reserve. We're continuing to transfer money to our equipment replacement funds, $100,000, and it transferred in 2013 of just $860,000 for CIP projects. And this, based on current revenues and expenditures, this is projected to be our last year of significant transfer to the CIP budget for CIP projects. Looking at our long-term budget picture in summary, we're continuing to have a perpetual systemic revenue expenditure gap. We're able to manage that on an annual basis in our operating budget by making cuts and trying to increase efficiencies. However, we are still continuing to defer some large maintenance projects to fill that gap. And unfortunately, our CIP projects are going to continue. That list is going to continue to grow bigger unless we can find additional revenue sources or decrease our expenditures. We've received some direction from City Council to continue working to educate the public on our budget process and the revenue gap that we're seeing in our capital budget. So staff will continue working on that to give council information if we need to move forward with any type of adjustments in revenues or expenditures. We're going to continue moving forward with the integration of our priority-based budgeting process for the 2013 and 2014 budget processes. And economic development is going to continue to be a high priority for me and a focus for me and hopefully council to help us also with that revenue gap. And with that, that's our presentation. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Patrick, did you have any money in the budget for education and training for landlords and renters as discussed by council for the multi-family and rental projects?
We have not included any money for that specifically, no.
So council may want to talk about that a little bit, because that was one of the, not the education and training part. Mr. Reinhardt?
It wasn't one of the vehicles for setting that up was actually the Apartment Owners Association had some materials to build that program. I wasn't quite sure whether we were originally planning to dedicate staff or how we were going to tackle it. Was it your impression that we were?
It was my impression, based on the council discussion, that staff would, council would forego inspection programs, but those are going to be an education and a training for landlords and renters so that they would clean their properties up. And
I don't think we ever asked for a specific program, though. And maybe we should, but I don't recall.
No, my question was if there was going to be any funding for like brochures or mailings or some kind of a educational program.
I don't know.
Ken, is there anything in the works today under current budget?
No, we haven't budgeted directly for that. Just the timing of that came up kind of midstream through the budget process, so we didn't backfill anything for promotional materials. But certainly not additional staff resources at this point. I think we were going to gauge whether, getting the word out more actively on the ability for someone to have that type of an inspection would actually have a noticeable staff impact. We didn't necessarily think that it would.
And also, I believe we were just going to do some initial in-house stuff that wouldn't cost any money, just the connections, articles, and website, Channel 8 is my understanding of what we were going to move forward with until we got any further direction.
Any other comments from council on it?
Well, there's a ton of information, Jefferson County real estate and the state, and they've got all that, what renters' rights are, so all we got to do is pass under that.
Good. Mr. J?
A couple of questions. You allow $2,000 for annual planning on 38th Avenue, water maintenance, etc. How will we take care of that?
I'm sorry.
In the budget, you had allowed $2,000 for the annual planning on 38th Avenue, and my question was, as I recall, the water trucks are going up and down, and so there's maintenance to the plants, and I'm wondering where we're going to cover that.
Correct.
Is that in the parks? Or?
The contract that we have currently in place when they installed the plants included maintenance, which included had in part the watering that's being done now. So that's all part of the current contract that you have funded.
Okay.
Through next summer.
Through next year.
Yes.
Through next summer. Okay. You had referred to the large item replacement of $100,000 as well as the cash out $50,000, which of course sort of puts funds in storage for these occurrences. And I seem to be struggling with, I think I've asked this before, are those funds part of our reserves?
items, the 100,000 for
The 100,000 for the large item replacement,
large
And-
item, for the equipment replacement.
equipment replacement, and then a cash out program of 50,000, which covers employee benefits that are unpaid that are accumulating, which I think is great that we're doing that. My question was, is that a part of our reserves, unrestricted reserves, or where does that fall in? Do we have some other little pot somewhere?
Yeah, the 100,000 would be a transfer from the general fund to the equipment replacement fund. So there's a separate fund.
There is a separate fund
for the equipment replacement, so that money is segregated, and it's only specifically used for. So that it has its own fund balance. So that money goes into its fund balance until it's needed.
Got it. Great.
The 50,000 is a budgeted item, and then it's used as needed.
As needed, as the employees. Okay.
If employees request a PTO cash out based on the criteria that's set up, which there's quite a bit of criteria before they can ask for that, it's expended. If it's not all used, it goes back into the fund balance at the end of the year.
Got it. Thank you.
General fund balance.
Any other questions? Now, this is coming back to council on the 26th, you said?
That's what we have scheduled for adoption. Yeah, we have to have it adopted before the 15th of December.
Right. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Mr. Stites?
Yeah, I've got a lot of them that I'll meet with you on different things, but the $100,000 for 38th Avenue,
The street improvements in the CIP budget.
what would that be for?
That's anything that would come up as part of the implementation plan that was put together, the marketing plan, and Tim can probably speak to that more directly.
Right. It's not. It has no specific items right now. There are 2 or 3 things that have been talked about. One is the need or the desire to place some over-street banners on 38th at 3 different locations. That would require 6 new poles, new steel poles that the city would own, and then could maintain some banners if we had the banners or the 38th Business Group wanted to place banners. So that's the primary one that we've heard about. We also felt we needed to have some money there for general maintenance of the planners and the pop-up cafes over the next year in case we needed to perform anything extra on those. And there'll probably be need for some additional paint on some of the crosswalks in the spring because they'll be ground off by the snowplows. We'll need to have a little bit of money to help refresh those as we do each year.
Okay, I just want to be careful on what we're spending down there because this is still an 18-month experiment. And then did anybody ever find out what it would cost to buy those light poles on 38?
We're working on that. Excel puts you through kind of a long process to request those, and they required a certain amount of information. We've identified the poles that we think we would like to purchase, and Public Works staff is working on that. You have to put together a specific spreadsheet, send it to Excel, and then they will give, so they'll give us a number. So we are working on that with them.
I do have, like I said, I do have quite a few questions that I'll get with you on between now and then also the economic development guy, guru or whatever, was supposed to have been a year's experiment. How's that working out? Remember, we wanted you and Ken initially to handle the economic development, and then you felt it was better to bring on an economic development person for a year just to try it out. Remember? Yeah.
No, I don't remember the condition of it just being a year. We currently continue to work as a team. The community development director, myself, and the economic development manager. Steve focuses on a lot of more of the hands-on business-to-business direct relationship, small business retention. But he also does help with, we get numerous calls on a daily basis about information they want to know about properties. Can we locate? We're looking to locate somewhere. So Steve handles a lot of that. Ken and I handle more of the larger developments once they come in play. We're working on the 4 or 5 priority areas, the 38th and Watts, 38th and Kipling, 44th and Watts, 44th and Kipling areas, the Clear Creek Crossing development. They're all under, currently people are looking at them, and so we're working on it. So I feel it's working fairly well.
I just wondered if it was good.
Any other questions, comments? Ms. Davis?
So thank you guys for meeting with me this afternoon.
Sure.
So I've already met with you regarding some issues as far as expenses, and I know, as speaking today, a lot of these expenses might be a little bit of nickel and dime, but I think with that in mind, every nickel and dime counts. I would like to challenge us to relook at the PTO buyback program and get back to the whole foundation that paid time off is for our employees to get respite, not to add a little bit more onto your salary at the end of the year because you bank time. So, and I think that one of the things that kind of set in today as we were talking, and because I was comparing, my workplace or my queries of other folks, and one of the comments that was made, I'm going to sound like a commercial that we've been hearing for the last 4 months now, but one of the comments that was said to me was that, well, that's the public sector. And I do think we need to challenge ourselves to try to not government overspend, and I think as a public sector, government should be held to a similar cost-cutting or budget-conscious mindset. So I just want to say that too. And then, let's see. The one thing I wanted to say to the folks maybe watching, because I perhaps if I was watching would maybe be a little bit frightened if I saw that the expense to the circus, and that's an expense that we forward out, but a lot of that will be paid back with ticket sales and sponsorship and that type of thing. So I guess I wanted to just say that out loud for those people who are watching that might have just fallen off their sofa or something for that. So I wanted to add that other comment.
Thank you. And just to clarify on that, yeah, we are projecting, I think, $60,000 in revenue from the circus next year.
Mr. Starker?
I had a question from a citizen about, and I noticed that we have it in the budget, about $800,000 or $900,000 for the Kendall Park property. So the plan would be to construct that in 2013.
Mr. Joyce, yes.
We're advertising right now for landscape architects, so we'll award that contract the first meeting in January if all goes on schedule. We'll begin the design process, which will include some neighborhood or public input meetings. Then we'll go into design development, then construction drawings, and hopefully be under construction in the fall of 2013, which will take us into the spring of 2014.
So we look for a grand opening in the spring of 2014.
If everything goes on schedule, yes.
Thank you.
The only other question I had is, the street changes to 38th Avenue, the striping has only been about 4 months. And I've noticed that, I know the striping is temporary, but is there some money in there besides just doing the crosswalks that you can freshen up that paint on 38th Avenue after the plow's been over all of it? Because I think I've seen it already degrade over the last few months, and we got 16 more months or 18 more months. I know Mr. Reinhardt and Ms. Davis has mentioned some of that striping is already starting to fade. Is there a chance that they'll have some of that over the summer or after the winter?
Yes, we typically will go in and freshen up everything that was painted with water-based paint, which is the stuff that we didn't expect to last only one season. And so everything that seems light now will get another application in the spring. The reason, again, that we did that is because it is experimental. And if we needed to take that off, and if we would have used more expensive material, it would have cost a lot more to get rid of it. So once we know what we're going to have as a permanent application, we'll spend a lot more money, and we'll have something that'll last, a couple of years before we have to reapply.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Stites?
Just a couple of things that I had in going through these line item accounts and stuff on the economic development. The NRS implementation is $92,000. Boy, it zooms up to $315,500. That's a big jump. It's on page 232.
Of your budget book.
Yeah, and I can speak to each of those, what's in there. This year we didn't fully fund the Wheat Ridge 2020 bubble and HIP grant loan programs. They're building up business loan and their housing improvement because I believe they had enough funds left to continue that program. Wheat Ridge 2020 requested $150,000 total for both the bubble and HIP programs. We have $100,000 in there to continue moving the 38th Avenue marketing plan to implement that plan. And then the rest is, those are the two major items, but there's $20,000 in there for Live Local. There's $20,000 for the East Wheat Ridge Neighborhood Revitalization Grant Program that I spoke about, $6,000 for the Energy Efficiency Grant Program, $5,000 for Dumpster Days, $2,500 for neighborhood block parties, and $12,000 for community education, the planning committees, and the other community education outreach activities that 2020 participates in. So a total of $315,500.
I just see big jumps like that, and it makes my heart go pity-pat. And then the other big jump is on page 246 in the line items. Community development long-range planning, we jumped from $0 to $350,000 on professional services.
That's our EPA grant. We have to expend that somewhere, so that's where that's at.
Just tucked in a funny spot, but anyway, like I said, it does make my heart go pity-pat when I see big jumps. But you go through a lot of this stuff, and some of these conference and meetings and particular things like that have doubled for a lot of these departments coming in for this next year. Community development planning, conference and meeting was $1,750. Now you're up to $4,900. Community development building, ordinance enforcement, you go from $0 to $10,000. Training, you go from $1,400 to $2,700. There's a lot of this stuff is really starting to double and go up on particular things, and it makes you pause a little bit. But I'll get with you. See what we can eliminate.
Any other questions before we move on to item 5? Mr. Pond, you good? What's that? No, I was just wondering if you had any questions. Oh, you look like you were stressing out over there. Okay. No. Okay, we'll move on to decisions, resolutions, and motions. Item 5 is Alderman Starker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll try to be brief. Item 5 is a motion to approve the First Amendment to the T-Mobile West Tower lease. At issue in this item, T-Mobile has a lease agreement for space on the city's communication tower. T-Mobile wishes to upgrade the equipment on the city property to provide better service to its customers. Double goal. The magnitude of the changes requires an amendment to the existing agreement. Is a motion in order?
A motion is in order for item 5.
Well, then I will move to approve the First Amendment to the T-Mobile West Tower lease.
Is there a second?
Second. Oops.
We have a motion to approve the amendment, item 5. It was seconded by Councilmember Davis. Discussion on item 5. Please poll the council.
Sorry. Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Item 6 is Resolution 51-2012. Alderman Stites.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 51, 2012, a resolution approving a cooperative agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency for acceptance of a $400,000 brownfield assessment grant and amending the fiscal year 2012 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $50,000. The Community Development Department applied for and received a $400,000 brownfields assessment grant from the Environmental Protection Agency to undertake environmental assessments on potentially contaminated properties within the city of Wheat Ridge. The city is required to enter into a cooperative agreement with EPA regarding the expenditures of these funds. It is anticipated approximately $50,000 of these funds will be extended in 2012, requiring a supplemental budget appropriation. The remaining $350,000 has been included in the 2013 proposed budget. Is the motion in order?
Motion's in order.
I move to approve Resolution 50, 2012, a resolution approving a cooperative agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency for acceptance of a $400,000 brownfields assessment grant and amending the fiscal year 2012 general fund budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $50,000.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to approve item number 6. It was seconded by Mr. Starker. Discussion on item 6. Ms. Jay?
Reading the information, first of all, I think it's great that we got this huge grant. As I read it, there's 75 properties that this could possibly affect on the Wadsworth corridor. I think that's where the 75 properties are, and then the TOD site. And from what we just had, the budget discussion, that first $350,000 will be used next year. We'll use that. We'll do those studies next year.
We're estimating that we would spend about $50,000 this year. We're already working with the property owner at the southwest corner of 38th and Wadsworth to do some phase 2 testing. So we definitely will spend close to $50,000, if not on that site, on some other sites. But yes, we're hoping to be able to expend the funds if we can identify good candidate properties in 2013. We have a 3-year period to expend the funds, so it certainly could extend into 2014 as well. We're eligible to use the funds throughout the city, so we're initially going to focus on the properties that Wheat Ridge 2020 identified in their initial database for the Wadsworth corridor. So that's our first focus, and that's where our first outreach will be. But if we're unsuccessful partnering with property owners who have an interest in doing that, because we do need their consent, then we'll do outreach on a broader basis on Kipling and 44th and the TOD. Those could all be areas where we could have a need to do environmental testing.
So selection of those properties will be by our determination what we would prefer to do, or will property owners hopefully, or maybe, and I don't know if the words hopefully or not, come to us with requests?
Yeah.
I'm only asking this because from a marketing viewpoint, is that some properties might be more desirable for us to go through this process.
At this point, we really envision kind of a self-selection process. We'll do the public outreach to explain the program to a list of property owners on that Wadsworth corridor and see what level of interest we get. And based on that interest, it'll really be kind of a first-come, first-serve program at that point where people come in and express a willingness to have their phase 1. And then if phase 1 concludes that a phase 2 is necessary, phase 2 assessments. So that's our approach at this point, is kind of a targeted Wadsworth. See how much money we spend there, and if we don't spend the funds there, then make a broader outreach program to the rest of the city.
Okay. I can see where it could be a very valuable to be able to say that we have these pre-costs covered through this grant to somebody that wants to develop something in our areas.
Absolutely. I mean, we think it's a great tool.
It's a wonderful
the risk and uncertainty with unknown environmental contamination and what that might mean for the bottom line of a project is a significant risk, and one that we hope to get out of the way with these grants.
Thank you for getting the grant for us. I know your staff worked on it. Thank you.
Okay, did we have a motion on item number? So please poll the council. Item number 6.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. Item 7 is Resolution 52-2012. Alderman Davis.
Resolution number 52-2012, a resolution approving submittal of the application for a 2013 local government grant to Jefferson County Open Space for development of a District 2 neighborhood park. The Jefferson County Open Space Department has a local government grant program that allows cities to apply for matching funds for acquisition, new construction, or maintenance projects. As a part of the requirements for the submittal of the grant application, an approval resolution is required by the Jefferson County Open Space Department showing City Council support for the requested project. Funds from the local government grant program are awarded annually by the Open Space Department to cities and districts in Jefferson County. A percentage of the matching funds is required from the city's attributable share of open space funds to match the grant requested. The 2013 recommended local grant application is for the development of a District 2 neighborhood park on previously acquired property located on 44th and Kendall Street. Motion in order?
Motion's in order.
I move to approve resolution number 52-2012, a resolution approving submittal of the application for a 2013 local government grant to Jefferson County Open Space for development of a District 2 neighborhood park.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve item number 7. It was seconded by Ms. J. Discussion? Please poll the council.
Uh-oh. You're going to owe us cupcakes next time.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay. Did you expect something different?
Okay. I thought you didn't clear the board again.
No, I think we're good. I heard a clicking noise. All right. Item 8 is Alderman DeMott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Number 8, motion to award RFQ 12-19 Youngfield Restroom Renovation Design Build Contract to White Construction Group in the amount of $134,449 and approve a contingency amount of $13,445. The existing restroom located at the Youngfield Trailhead, 4150 Youngfield Street, functions as a self-composting system. This project would serve to convert this existing system to a sanitary sewer conventional flush-type toilet system. The project would provide a turnkey renovated building which would meet all Title II ADA 2010 standards for state and local government facilities. The renovation will include demolition and removal of the existing plumbing and sewer composting system and the installation of a new plumbing and flush toilet system, sanitary sewer and sewer pump system, electrical and heating system and upgrades, a concrete foundation, and renovation of existing concrete flatwork. Is the motion in order?
Motion's in order.
I move to award RFQ 12-19 Youngfield Restroom Renovation Design Build Contract to White Construction Group in the amount of $134,449 and approve a contingency amount of $13,445.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve item number 8. It was seconded by Mr. Pond. Discussion on the outhouse? Please poll the council.
Nice, Jerry.
Motion carries 7-1 with Mr. Reinhardt voting no.
Ms. Manwaring, could you give me a corner of that building so we can give it to Mr. Starker in memoriam? Just a small brick. Just a small brick. All kidding aside, it's just like a bucket or a brick or something like that, or a faucet. Item 9 is Alderman Pond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 9, a motion to cancel the study session of November 5th, 2012 due to the general election date of November 6th, 2012. There are no items listed for the November 5th study session. And the city is officially polling location, and the city council chambers must be set up on the evening of the 5th for the general election on the 6th. There's a motion in order?
Motion's in order.
I move to cancel the city council study session scheduled for November 5th, 2012, due to the general election date of November 6th, 2012.
Second. We have a motion to approve item 9. It was seconded by Mr. Stites. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda for this evening. We'll move on to city manager's matters.
Mayor, I have nothing this evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Bell.
Well, I have a PowerPoint, but I'm going to pass. No, thank you.
On the charter. Ms. Shaver, city clerk.
Yeah, actually, it's election time, so I have a few things to say. All of the Jefferson County ballots have been mailed, so Wheat Ridge folks should either have their ballot or be getting it real soon. If you don't get your ballot by this Wednesday, you should go to the voting service center. The closest one for Wheat Ridge residents is the motor vehicle office at 20th and Wadsworth. You can go in there, tell them your situation, and they'll take care of you. They'll get you a ballot. Also, early voting started today. So if you are one of those folks who has not requested a mail-in ballot and you don't expect to get one in the mail, but you don't want to wait till November 6th to vote, you can actually go in to that service center or clear out to the county if you happen to be out there, and you can vote early. Just tell them your name and that you want to vote early, and you can. Then there's a reminder again for Wheat Ridge voters. You see, I'm told that it's a pink letter in your ballot that says you're not eligible to vote on this Wheat Ridge Fire thing. That's the one I mentioned before. It's an Edgewater issue. It shouldn't even be on our ballot, so just ignore it. Don't vote it. It doesn't matter. But don't get in a panic. We've already had a couple people call in today. What's this all about? So don't vote on that. It doesn't matter. Just ignore it. And then also to remind folks, you can always bring in your ballots at City Hall. We're open from 8 to 5 every day during the week, and this would save you a stamp. It would make sure that your ballot won't get lost in the mail, and it will get to the county on time. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Langworthy?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. J?
It's Halloween. This Saturday at Wheat Ridge School, 5 through 8, they're having, of course, trunk and treat, which we had last year, where we're going to have people, businesses, individuals open their trunks and have treats for the kids between 5 and 8 o'clock. If you're going to bring your car there and open the trunk, you need to be there. I think it's 4:15. Save your spot. We had a lot of fun with it last year. About 350 kids came through, so should be fun.
Thank you. Mr. Reinhardt?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Stites? Oh, okay. Mr. Dumont?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have something tonight. As we know, we've seen Joyce's email this week. In November sometime, we'll be choosing a new mayor pro tem, and I would like to ask tonight of my council members for their support for my quest to fill those shoes for next year. This will be my 4th year on council, and I believe I have the qualifications and the time to complete these tasks. I'd be happy to answer any questions in the next few weeks if you have. We have a month or so before we vote, but I just thought I'd put that in everybody's ear that I'd love to fill that position, and talk to you soon if you have any questions. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Starker?
I just wanted to congratulate the city and the city staff and the city council and the business community and the developers on the Town Center North project. I attended the opening today. I'm very, very proud that we have a new project in Wheat Ridge, and I look forward to continuing development on that corner. as a springboard to greater development throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Pond?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to have Mike go last because he has to make a motion for the executive session, so I'll just say a few words. I wanted to take this opportunity tonight to thank some key people who were involved in the Town Center project. As you know, tonight we had the ribbon cutting, the grand opening. It started in 2007 with discussions with the property owners. They were willing sellers at the time, and Urban Renewal and the Weavers 2020 and the mayor's office and a few other folks had negotiated options to buy the property. And I wanted to thank the people that helped us get us off the project off the ground. That was the members of our Urban Renewal Authority, Chair Rick Adams, Vice Chair Walt Pettit, Council Representative Christy Davis, and members Janet Leo, Jim Berenberg, and Tom Radigan, and Jesse Hill. I also wanted to thank past member Larry Schultz, our current city treasurer. And also a big thanks to Patrick Goff, our city manager and executive director of Renewal Wheat Ridge, Steve Art, economic development Renewal Wheat Ridge manager. And then our other staff was Ken Johnstone, community development director, Sarah Showalter, our planner, Tim Peranto, director of public works, and his staff. Of course, John Schumacher, chief building official, Kirk Adote, building inspector, and Melissa Mackey. And also the Wheat Ridge Fire Department, they were on there tonight also. So Wheat Ridge is really ripe for investment, and I believe that by continuing to promote a least restrictive environment in our planning and building processes, we can continue to make Wheat Ridge an attractive community for developers. I want to thank all the folks that were part of that today and the last 5 years. That corner is back in business. We have some good residential and some good architectural design standards in place with our mixed-use zoning commercial. They're really bringing that corner back into life with the residential and the commercial that's there now. And then also we celebrated, we got a lot of good things going on in the city of Wheat Ridge. That project finally opened up and came to fruition. I also wanted to acknowledge the businesses that were recognized 2 weeks ago, last Wednesday morning on our breakfast. First of all, I wanted to mention that we had nominees for the Business of the Year. The nominees were Advantage Wireless, Ceviche Authentic Peruvian Dining, Dragonfly Cafe, France Cafe, Homestead Senior Care, Larson Ski and Sport, Parker Arms and Gunsmithing, Right Coast Pizza, Summit Center, Swiss Flower, and Gift Cottage, Tune My PC, Vinyl Works, and Wheat Ridge Cyclery. These businesses are all over 38th Avenue, 44th Avenue in the city. And the Business of the Year that was selected by the city was Wheat Ridge Cyclery. The Reinvestment Award was Applewood Quality Builders and Right Coast Pizza. There was 2 awards. The Cultural Commission Award was Vinyl Works. The City Council Partnership Award was Roger Lasher. The Mayor's Business and Community Partnership Award was Pietro's Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant. And the Special Recognition Award was Jerry Nealon, owner of Crest Kitchen and Bath. So as you can see, the city is moving forward. Like I mentioned earlier, we have great staff, great city council, and a lot of new citizens working in our community. And that's the last thing I wanted to congratulate and thank was last Thursday, we had our Boards and Commissions dinner, and that was at the Rec Center. We had about 150 people show up, staff and our boards and commission members. So a big thank you to all of our boards and commission members who helped the city move forward. Parks Commission, the Arts Council, Culture Commission. We're working on art, we're working on planning, we're working on zoning, working on code enforcement issues. So we've got a lot of people involved in moving this wheel forward. And I'm really proud to be the mayor of Wheat Ridge, and I'm proud to be working with the city council. And I think that the staff is working great with our citizens. We have a lot of new citizens. That's the big key, is new and not so new citizens involved in our community. So congratulations to everybody. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, I won't be able to make the executive session tonight, but you have my review of the city manager as a separate review. I think Patrick's done an outstanding job, very qualified job for the last year, and that's really it. So have a good and safe Halloween, and be careful out there in the street walking out at night. So, Mr. Stites?
Boy, you're the good news guy tonight, I tell you.
And find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge.
I got to do my spiel. It'd be a great time to relocate your home or business to Wheat Ridge. If you need any help, ask one of us or staff. Positive thing, you know what was kind of funny? I was looking outside the other day, and I got weeds popping up again. Amazing, absolutely amazing. But weeds and leaves, so help your neighbors. And as always, please try to find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge. And with that being said, I move to go into executive session for a conference with the city attorney under Charter Section 5.7B1 and Section 24.6.4024B CRS, specifically for a conference with the city manager and the city attorney under Charter Section 5.7B2 and CRS 246402-4F for a personal matter, the annual evaluation of the city manager. I further move to adjourn the city council meeting at the conclusion of the executive session.
Second.
We have a motion to move into executive session, seconded by Mr. Reinhardt. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you. We're adjourned.